And welcome to The Verdict. Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett joining you again today for another episode of The Verdict. We are very pleased today to welcome to our show Dr. Kristina Booth from OU Med. She's going to, when we get through with this little open, she'll come out and be introduced to you and talk to us about a number of interesting topics. But before we get to that, Mick, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Well, just chugging along. Got both my COVID shots.
Getting spring fever. I'm ready to get outside a little bit more.
Well, I have spring fever and hay fever at the same time, and I'm not sure which is more desirable. Anyway, folks, we're going to be back in just a minute to introduce Dr. Kristina Booth to you. We think we've really got a good, interesting show lined up for today, and we'll see you in just a minute.
Right now, 6 feet can feel like a long ways away. But from 6 feet, we can still smile at each other. From our doorways and our stairways, from opposite sides of the street and opposite sides of the country. Through fear and frustrations, we can remind each other that we are still here for each other. Because we can still smile at each other. And we're not going anywhere.
Law enforcement runs in my family. My father and I combined have served as citizens of Oklahoma for half a century, and I'm proud to carry on the tradition. I'm Lieutenant Dwight Durant with the Oklahoma Highway Patrol, and I am Chickasaw. We all get into law enforcement for various reasons, but the main reason is because we have this need to help other people. The misperception is that we're out here stopping speeders and writing speeding tickets. That's a small portion of what we actually do in an 8-hour day. Putting on the uniform, going through the very intensive patrol school, succeeding through that and graduating, the pride that I had was more than I could ever imagine. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol is one of the finest institutions that we have, and I am honored to be a member of the Highway Patrol. I'm honored to be a citizen of the state of Oklahoma, and just as honored to be a citizen of the Chickasaw tribe.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back. Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett joining you once again on The Verdict. And I want to take this time to introduce our guest for this week, Dr. Kristina Booth, who is a physician at OU Med. She did her undergraduate work at Oklahoma Baptist University, did her medical work at the University of Oklahoma. She has been at OU Med now for about 4 years. She's board certified in surgery, and she has a specialty in colorectal surgery. And there's kind of a special reason we brought that up this week, because this is Colorectal Health Month in the United States. And she's going to talk to us about that and how to achieve it and how to maintain it, as well as other things that I think you'll find quite interesting. She is board certified in surgery, and she is a member of the American Society of Colorectal Surgeons. Dr. Booth, welcome to The Verdict.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dr. Booth, you grew up in Oklahoma. What drew you to medicine, first of all?
Well, I think a lot of doctors, probably most of us, go into medicine to help people. I started reading books about medicine at a very young age and just felt drawn to that field as a way to make a difference and help people with their longevity and quality of life.
What I mentioned in the open that this is a National Colorectal Health Month, Colorectal Care Health Month. It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Why should that be significant to us?
Well, it is National Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, and I think it's very important for Oklahomans to gain some awareness of colorectal cancer for 3 reasons. The first is that it is a common cancer. It's the third most common cancer in the world behind lung and breast cancer. And so it's estimated that 1 in 23 to 25 people will experience colorectal cancer. So there's a good chance you or someone you know may be affected by this. The second reason is that it is a deadly cancer, unfortunately. It actually kills more people than breast cancer, so it's the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths in the world. And in the United States alone, about more than 50,000 people die every year from colon rectal cancer. Mm-hmm. And the thing that's really heartbreaking about that, Kent, and the third and most important reason we want to talk about colorectal cancer is that most of those deaths are actually preventable.
Mm. But with early detection, is that the point?
Absolutely. These cancers don't really just appear overnight. They grow mostly from polyps. There's some damage to the polyps, and then they become colon cancer. So we can decrease colorectal deaths and prevent them, one, by actually finding polyps and getting rid of them before they even become cancer. And then the other thing is that if we actually find colon cancer very early, usually kind of before people start to have symptoms from it, if we find it really early, we can actually, that gives us a shot to cure it so that nobody has to die from it.
Mm-hmm. And it has a reputation of being a male disease. Is that reputation earned?
It is. We do find it a little bit more frequently in the male population. What we are starting to find is that females may develop it more often at a later age. So the mean incidence for men is in their 60s, but in women, it's in their 70s. So both definitely get affected by colon and rectal cancer. So we need people to be vigilant of it regardless of their sex.
Are most of your patients men or women, or does it matter one way or the other?
I see quite a few of both. I don't know. I haven't run the statistics to look and see if there's a predominance in my particular patient population, but I certainly see it affect both.
Dr. Booth, when I talked to April Sandifer, who's a good resource of guest for us at OU Med, about having you on, she mentioned about you that you're the only female colorectal surgeon at OU Med and maybe the state of Oklahoma. Is that right?
That is true. There's a lot of diversity in the College of Medicine and the Department of Surgery. So I'm not the only female surgeon around, but specifically board certified in colorectal surgery. I am the only one in the city. And last I checked, I was the only one in the state. That can certainly change.
What accounts for that? It's dominated by male surgeons?
That's a pretty deep question there, Kent. There can be a lot of ways for that. I mean, so historically, of course, medicine in general was male dominated, and we finally kind of gotten to the point where we're now 50-50, if not majority female entering medical school. And then I have to say that there's a little bit of a stereotype, or has been in the past, with surgery being a very considered a more demanding field, and that women couldn't have a work-life balance if they went into it. And those things are not really true, particularly not anymore. And so I think that we're developing more and more females going into general surgery, but it's still, I think it's about 30%. I would probably need to double check that for you. But we are getting more females into general surgery to begin with. And then from general surgery into colorectal surgery, there's actually a decent interest of females in colorectal surgery because it can be a female health driven specialty. And so I think that it's more of a local phenomenon, that there's less female colorectal surgeons in this state, but also just a catching up. It's been a male dominated field. And so we are just becoming, as kind of some of the older surgeons retire and more females come through the programs, we'll be seeing more and more, I'm sure.
Dr. Booth, at what age should a person start thinking about having a checkup for this specific issue? What age do you recommend to your patients?
That can depend on a couple of things. The latest that somebody should consider having colonoscopy is age 50. And that's the recommendation of the United States Preventative Services Task Force.
Age 50.
Age 50, yes. Okay. Now, there are some other societies, including the American Cancer Society, who in the last 5 years have said that the age limit, the starting for screening colonoscopies should be age 45. And so I think as more and more societies start to lower that age limit, we'll hopefully see the United States Preventative Services Task Force lower that age requirement as well.
Is it the same for men and women?
Yes, it is 45. There are a couple of people who should consider getting colonoscopy sooner. And that's number one, if there are risk factors like a family history, a significant family history of colon cancer, or own personal problems with their colon, like inflammatory disease, are going to need colonoscopy sooner. And then I think anyone that has symptoms they're worried about should discuss with their doctor whether or not those symptoms warrant a colonoscopy. About 10% of colon cancers are found in people younger than age 50. And so while the event is rare to see a young person with colon cancer, we do see it. And it's very easy, I think, as someone who thinks they're not old enough to have colon cancer yet, to put off some of those signs and symptoms. And so I really want to encourage Oklahomans that no later than age 50, hopefully by 45, and certainly if you're worried about something sooner.
Take that on up the scale. Is there an age so large, so great, that one need not worry about it any longer? Or does it just continue throughout life after age 45 or 50?
Well, between 75 and 85, we can start talking about not doing colonoscopies. We certainly don't do any kind of screening colonoscopies after the age of 85. And for a lot of people, 75 is enough. That depends on, say, somebody that's had regular screening colonoscopies starting at age 50 and they've never had any polyps. They are probably safe to stop at age 75. But someone that's 70, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you
Somebody
go ahead.
that's 75 and has never had a colonoscopy probably should go ahead and have one. Somebody that's 85 and has never had a colonoscopy, probably not.
We just have about 45 seconds left in this segment. Of course, we'll be back with you after the break. But what kind of symptoms might a person experience absent an examination and identification of the problem?
The symptoms can be a little bit vague. The main one is going to be bleeding with bowel movements, as well as problems having bowel movements, so prolonged constipation, vague abdominal pains, as well as weight loss, night sweats. Those are kind of always things that need to be checked out.
Well, I think this has would be a good place to take a break, and you've been very helpful up to this point. We look forward to you filling in the last half of our show, which you will do right after our break, and our commercial sponsors get a chance to give us their messages. Folks, you're watching The Verdict with Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett and Dr. Kristina Booth. We'll be right back.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank number 2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
We want to reach out to every veteran we can in Oklahoma. There's somewhere around 340,000 veterans here in Oklahoma. And half of those are still unaware of the benefits or don't know how to go about getting them.
We help guide the veterans through the VA system. It's a giant maze, and we kind of help guide them through that maze. So our job is to try to help the veterans get everything that they're legally entitled to. There's just a special place in my heart for our Vietnam veterans and our World War II veterans, as well as any veteran, and that's why I do the job.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Kent Meyers with Mick Cornett and Dr. Kristina Booth, our guest this week, talking about colorectal health and the importance of it. Mick, where would you like to go from here?
Well, why is it important? Other than cancer, are there other issues that can be something a person should be concerned about?
Absolutely. I see a lot of patients with problems and complaints about their bowel movements, pain, trouble having them, that this can really affect people's quality of life. So we can help patients not just live longer lives, but also live better lives. Nobody wants to have to worry about their bowel movements every hour of the day, or certainly have the discomfort of having pain with defecation. And so we can certainly address some of those issues if people are willing to come talk to us about them.
How important is diet in this area?
Diet's very important. So a low fiber diet is one of the risk factors for colon cancer, as well as it can be a big cause of constipation. And constipation is often a source of some of those problems that people have when they're defecating.
So, well, give us specifically, what should people eat more of if they want to improve their lives in this area?
So fiber can be found in a lot of things. Of course, your basic bran, vegetables, particularly kind of chunky vegetables, broccoli and lettuce are big sources of fiber, as well as pectin, which is found in a lot of fruit skins and jam and jelly. Most Americans get about 12 to 16 grams of fiber, and that's not even half of what you're supposed to get. So to be quite honest with you, Mick, at some level, you can't get all the fiber you need from an American diet. And so I pretty much recommend that everyone supplement their fiber with some you can get out of over the counter. Particularly, I think powders work the best. And so most people need a little bit of extra help to get all the way to the amount of fiber that we're supposed to get to keep our colon healthy.
Talk to us a little bit about the advancements in the dreaded subject of colonoscopies. Are the techniques improving, making it less painful, less intrusive, and so on?
Oh, so there are a few things about colonoscopies that people hate, right? The thing that people hate the most is the prep the day before. So that's the medication we have to take so that you can clear out your colon of stool so that we can actually see around inside the colon. And there are a few different options out there that people are using. For the most part, we've cut the amount of liquid you have to take in half or more than half in some cases. And there are some situations where we've started to be able to use some pills forms. They don't always work as well. And depending on past medical history, people may not be a candidate to use those, but there are some options for that. There are sedation that we give during the procedure so that people are pretty much asleep and people wake up and are surprised that it's done. So that's usually not the hard part. The hard part and the most uncomfortable part is the prep the day before that really gets people spending a little bit, well, not a little bit, quite a bit of time in the bathroom.
Well, what is the point of that? Why is that necessary?
Well, a few reasons. One is safety. So when we use the camera to go inside the colon and move around, if there's large pieces of stool blocking the way, we can't safely get around that to where we can get through all of the colon. That can cause us to accidentally go the wrong way and cause a hole in the colon, something like that. The second thing is the reason we're doing it is to look for cancers. And if the lining of the colon wall is covered with stool, we may not be able to see through that and be able to detect all of the polyps and cancers that we can if the colon is clean.
Let me change the subject and get a little more personal to Kristina Booth. What's a typical week like in your life, or a typical month, however you'd like to break it down, between office practice and surgery, involved in surgeries and the like?
I spend my Mondays in clinic with benign colorectal patients. And so I basically spend 8 to 5 seeing patients in the clinic. Tuesdays, Wednesday mornings, and Fridays I spend in the operating room. I spend another half day in the colorectal clinic with cancer patients at the cancer center. And I spend a half a day doing colonoscopies. There's also meetings when we talk about cancer treatments. We are very focused at the Stevenson Cancer Center on multidisciplinary approach. So I get together once a week with radiologists, oncologists, radiation doctors to go over our mutual patients and make sure that we're giving them the best care. So there's those meetings. I'm also an associate program director for the Department of General Surgery. So I work a lot with the general surgery residents, getting them through their training. And so I spend some academic time working on educational projects as well.
Wow, you've got a full plate.
Yeah. How much research is going on in these areas?
Oh, here at the University of Oklahoma, there is some research studies that is actually looking at some of the genetic cell lines that grow out of these cancer tumors that will help us with further treatment options. We also are doing some clinical trials where we're looking at things that can kind of may hopefully decrease the pain after hemorrhoid surgery. We're looking at things to improve quality of life of patients that have had rectal surgery. And then I personally do some research involving resident education as well.
Why did you pick this particular specialty?
Well, to start with, I had to pick general surgery first before I even knew that I was interested in colorectal. And what really appealed to me for surgery was being able to work with our hands, use my hands to really potentially cure people of their ailments or their problems or their cancer. I think all doctors certainly go into the field wanting to help people, but we can do that in lots of different ways. And so the way I liked and what I wanted to focus on was immediately being able to cure people pretty quickly, taking care of their problems while being able to work with my hands. And so while learning about general surgery, I then became more familiar with colorectal surgery. And the things I love about colorectal surgery is, one thing is that a lot of the things I see my patients for are treatable and we have a good outcome. So I feel like I am able to help people make a difference in their lives for most of the things that I see on a regular basis. I personally also really love the variety in colorectal surgery, both from a patient standpoint. So I see college age kids up to people that are my friends with my grandparents, and there's a wide range in that sense, as well as what I actually get to do on a daily basis. I can spend time with patients in clinic. I can do endoscopy procedures, as well as small little surgeries where people get to go home the same day, to really complex surgeries that take hours to do.
Whenever we have a doctor on who deals with the cancer treatment at some level, I like to give them an opportunity to promote the Stevenson Cancer Center, because I don't know that all Oklahomans appreciate it as much as they should.
Absolutely. I'm very proud to work at the Stevenson Cancer Center. I think they do great things for cancer research and patient care, for sure.
Why is it important that more women get into the field that you're engaged in now? You're the only one in maybe Oklahoma, but certainly at OU Med. Why would it be important to increase the number of women in this profession? And we only have, sorry to say, about 1 minute left. So if you could give us a shorter answer.
Okay. Ultimately, we want patients to be able to seek care with somebody that they're comfortable with. So having female representation for some women, when we're talking about private part areas, they feel more comfortable with the women. If that's something that they feel more comfortable with, that's a need that I want to be able to meet. As well as we also deal with some specialized functions of the pelvic floor that are particular only to females. So I think it's good to have female representation both in the study of these diseases as well as the treatment.
Dr. Booth, thank you so much. That's got to be the last word for this segment. We really do appreciate you giving us your time, and best of luck to you. You brought us really good information, and we appreciate it. Folks, you've been watching The Verdict with Dr. Kristina Booth at OU Med. Mick and I will be right back after this commercial break.
It used to be okay in teachers' lounges. It used to be okay in maternity wards. It was okay in sporting arenas, college campuses, and office spaces. But now that we understand the deadly dangers of secondhand smoke, that's not okay anymore. So why is it okay that thousands of employees are exposed to it every day at work? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's protect hardworking Oklahomans. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett finishing up a show with Dr. Kristina Booth from OU Med, talking about good colorectal health and giving a shout out to the Cancer Society here in Oklahoma, as well as Stevenson Cancer Center as well. Mick, thought she gave us some good information.
Well, she absolutely did. Excellent guest, excellent representative of the state of Oklahoma and specifically the OU Med. I wondered why it took us 1,000 shows to do a show on this. I mean, I know there's a lot of things to cover, but we shouldn't wait another 1,000 before we get back to this topic because it's really important.
You're right. Can you give us our websites?
Yeah, but you can reach more from Dr. Booth at her website, ouhealth.com, ouhealth.com. And we have a website, theverdict.tv.
Well, thanks, Mick. And I'll look forward to seeing you again next week. And folks out there viewing, thanks for joining in. And we will see you next week on The Verdict.